Hello YouTube! Today in the Naughty Librarian we are doing a Bookish AMA. So for the past little bit of time I have been asking you guys for questions. I've never done an AMA video before and I was a little nervous that maybe the questions would be weird, but surprisingly they've all been very nice questions, so I'm like, hey, the internet came through for once. But yeah, so many of you guys ask questions and I just want to answer them because I've never done one before. I'm kind of excited. I don't know, let's go into this. Question 1 was, what is your favorite wine? That's a hard question because I like a lot of wine. I actually have this one on hand right now because I opened it last night, and this is one of my favorites. It's a Montepulciano di Abruzzo, and this is kind of a northern Italian wine. It's from like the Tuscany region. Basically anything, if you see a Montepulciano on it, I recommend. It'll probably be pretty good. I definitely prefer reds if you're gonna catch on to that. For France, I do like a nice Côte de Rhône, so if you see that on a bottle, that would draw my eye as well. As for white wine, I'm not usually a big fan of it. I don't go out of my way for white wine. I just always find them too sweet. But if I'm going to get a white wine, I do like a nice Viognier. I think it's very fruit forward, but not too sweet. So yeah, there you go. I hope that helps. Next question, did you find a new job? Sending you so much love. First of all, thank you for your love. I will accept it. I like love. As for the new job, yes, I actually did get a new job. I managed to get a new job whilst in a pandemic that not only pays much better than my old job, but also I work fewer hours. So basically, old job can suck it. I got a great new job. I'm very happy. New question. Hi, how are you today? I'm okay so far. I'm feeling pretty zippy because it's actually early in the morning just because it's so hot out today that I wanted to film before it gets like unbearably hot. So I've been drinking cold brew. Like, I'm new to cold brew. I just found out about it and like I'm obsessed with cold brew and it has so much caffeine. Like, it's zippy and I'm having a great time. I'm very hyper. New question. What book or books do you badly want to see adapted into a TV series or movie? Oh man, there's so many. First one off the top of my head, I'm gonna go with the Salvager series by Alex White because it's written so cinematically in scope that like I want to see it on a big screen with special effects and like space battles and wizard battles, and I just want to see it like done big because I think it deserves that. And also it would make a great serial series. I would prefer a serial because I'd want to have more hours of content, but if they did it right they could make it into a movie. But yeah, it's basically space wizards and space adventures, treasure hunting, all kinds of good stuff that would make an excellent action series. What's your favorite trope? What's your favorite book? What's a book you love that's kind of unusual or varies from your usual type? So that was a lot of questions in one comment. But let's go through it. I'm gonna do all of them, why not? Favorite trope? I have so many favorite tropes, but the one I can always come back to especially is fake dating. I love it, especially in romance, because they always fall in love for real. It's like no one's fooled, but I just like fake dating. It has so many opportunities for zaniness, and it always works out. What's your favorite book? I cannot answer that. Several people asked me that, or a variation upon that, and I literally cannot answer the question because I do not have one. And I think if I was a person who had read fewer books, like yeah, if I've read 10 books, yeah, I could pick a favorite. Thing is, I've definitely read more than 1,000 books, probably, in my life. So picking one out of over 1,000, I can't do it. There's so many books I love, so I really can't pick one book over any other book. There's just a lot I love, so I don't have an answer, and I don't think I ever will. What's a book you love that's kind of unusual or varies from your usual type? So for people who've been around this channel for a bit, you know, like I pretty much read romance and fantasy. Like that's kind of what I do. If it has magic or kissing, I'm in. So anything outside of those two categories are things that I don't usually read. But in particular for this question, I chose The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is historical fiction. I never choose historical fiction. Like if you gave me 4 books to pick from, I would never pick the historical fiction book. It would be exceedingly rare for me to pick that one. But that being said, I heard so many incredible things about this book that finally I just picked it up. I did go to a signing too, so that was also a contributing factor, so it is signed. And so I went and I read it, and oh my goodness, this book is stunning. It's chef's kiss. It's a masterpiece. I love it so intensely. And normally I would not have picked it up, so I went outside of my comfort zone with historical fiction, and hot damn, was this fucking amazing. So yeah, Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, definitely. How do you read so quickly? Short answer, audiobooks. I love audiobooks. That is mainly because I am a busy person. I don't have hours to devote to sitting down with a book and doing nothing else besides looking at it. I don't have that kind of time on my hands. Like, if you have that kind of time on your hands, good for you. I'm glad you have such a leisurely lifestyle, but like, I got shit to do. If I have to do chores, I can pop on my audiobook. I'm ingesting new material while doing something else I have to do. So it's also just sneaking in time to read throughout the day. I like to tag team books as well. So I'll have the physical book or the ebook and the audiobook. So like, sometimes I'll read for a bit and then I'll skip ahead in the audiobook to whatever chapter I left off on, and then I'll listen for a bit and I'll go back to this. So like, I'll tag team things. But yeah, the short answer and most correct answer is probably audiobooks. I'd like to read more books about witches. What should I start with, read first? I don't know why I'm blanking right now. There's so many like witchy books that exist, and like I'm hard pressed to find one that's like incredible. I want more good witchy books. I haven't found a lot of good like coven stories, you know what I mean? Or maybe I just haven't found them. So if you know of any good like witchy coven books like with a lot of witchcraft, let me know in the comments down below. How do you have so many signed copies of books? Also, what is your favorite fantasy book you've read this year? All right, I have so many signed copies of books, mainly just because I live in Los Angeles, and I'm very fortunate that there are lots of book signings here. Well, there were a lot of book signing here before COVID, so hopefully in the future that will continue. But yeah, there's bookstores all over Los Angeles, and authors usually make trips through Los Angeles. There's also a lot of authors who just live here, so they're local, they have signings. So I was very fortunate to go to a lot of book signings because they were here. Favorite fantasy book I've read this year? I gotta think for a minute. Got it. Nailed it. This one. City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. I've actually read the whole trilogy this year. I'm obsessed with it. I love it. I want everyone to read it. I don't know why I slept on this series for so long, but it's incredible. I love it intensely. So yeah, City of Brass. I'm gonna go with that for my favorite fantasy book. Can you please do another smutty book haul or recommendation video? Yes, I can. If you're maybe new to the channel, every September I've had with a channel so far, I have dubbed to be Smutty September. So September is a month I kind of devote to smutty content because that's how I do things here. Smutty September is coming very shortly. I will have some smutty content on the way, and I will try to make more videos because I realize a lot of you people like my smutty book hauls. So there will be some coming. Your favorite anti-hero romance? Because this person is in need of some recommendations. I don't know. I love anti-heroes in general. But the thing is, I rarely have an anti-hero as a romantic lead in a book. Okay, so these are just three off the top of my head. Also, they were in my direct vicinity. First things first, I have Lothair by Kresley Cole. I recommend this series all the time. It's literally my favorite paranormal romance series. Although some of the older books are a little questionable in their consent because they're old books, so just take those books with a grain of salt. But this is a later release of the series. It is Lothair. This is about the titular Lothair, who is actually the main villain for all of the books. He is a vampire and also just very underhanded and conniving. And then you finally get his own book and you're like, oh, like, I get it. You're kind of an anti-hero more than just a villain. So yes, if you're into vampires, paranormal stuff, definitely check this one out. And, you know, he is the villain of the series getting his own book, so you find out more about him. I also picked A Duke by Default by Alyssa Cole because I don't know if he's necessarily anti-hero or reluctant hero. This is Portia and Tavish is aka hashtag Sword Bae. He is a Scottish sword maker. Mind you, this is a contemporary romance, by the way, but he also finds out that his father was a duke, so he is technically a, you know, duke by default, and he doesn't really want to be a duke, so he's like pushing that away, and he's kind of reluctantly taking up that so he can do a lot of good. So kind of an anti-hero, reluctant hero. It's related. And last up, I'm going to recommend Burn For Me by Alona Andrews. And in particularly, I would say Mad Rogan, our romantic male lead in this. He is definitely kind of an anti-hero. Like, he has a lot of behavior that you're just like, you're a legit psychopath. But at the end of the day, like, his psychopathy is actually doing a lot of good for the world. So I'm going to say he's an anti-hero. Any money-saving advice on buying books? I am glad you asked that question. There are multiple options for getting very cheap to free books. You just have to know how to do it. I think once quarantine kind of lifts and we get back to more normal stuff, I really recommend trying out library book sales. That is where I got probably 70% of my books, because you can find gems at library book sales. And honestly, they're not like old library books. These are like books people donate and they're brand new a lot of the time. So I definitely recommend checking that out. There's a website called booksalefinder.com. It literally just like lists all of the library book sales in your area. Check it out. Or, you know, used bookstores. Every place has a used bookstore. Sometimes you find gems. There's Goodwill. Sometimes you find gems at a Goodwill. Also, if you're looking for ARCs in particular, and you know you have a platform, you have like an Instagram, a blog, a YouTube channel, what have you, just like Google like the publisher and the publicity person. For example, I don't know, Tor Books. Just like Google Tor Books publicity and you'll probably find a listing for who the publicity agents are. You can just email them. Just email and say like, hi, my name is blah, 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 and these are my like social medias and I review books and I would really like to review X book, and just send the email. And you know, sometimes they approve it. They'd be like, oh cool, here's the book, here you go, and they'll send it to you for free. And you know, the worst thing that can happen is that they just don't send you the book. You have nothing to lose. So yeah, just email and then make friends. That's my best advice. If you could turn into any animal whenever you want, which animal would you choose and why? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. There's so, like, again, it's like such a cop-out answer, but it's like, I love animals. I'm like a hippy-dippy vegetarian. I just want to feed creatures and give them love. So like, there's so many animals that I would think would be cool to be for a little bit. I will say, like, my favorite, like, paranormal creature trope is werewolves. Like, I love werewolves and I think it'd be cool to be a werewolf. So I'm gonna go werewolf. There you go, I have werewolves. Or hyenas. There's an African myth called Abauda, which is basically a were-hyena, and hyenas are so misunderstood and also horrifying. Like, to hear that cackle from a were-hyena coming at you, like, that'd be terrifying. So yeah, were-hyena or a werewolf, I would go those directions. Where is your favorite place to read? I kind of read wherever I am doing whatever, so I don't really have one place that I always read at. If I had to pick a favorite, I guess it would just be like in bed. I like getting comfy and cozy and just reading a book. So yeah, I think I'm the most comfortable in my reading career when I'm just like laying down in bed reading a book. So I'm gonna go with in bed. Ooh, this question. Favorite Kresley Cole couple? Okay, so I've been already recommending Kresley Cole a bunch in this like video, but I'm gonna go with these two books because they're actually kind of related. This is Demon from the Dark, which is Malcolm and Caro, and then you have Dark Sky, which is Melanth and Thronos. And basically, Caro and Melanth kind of meet in captivity. They've been captured, and Caro's a witch, and Melantha's a sorceress, and they kind of like, they're both bad girls, and they kind of team up, and I'm like, I love that friendship, I live for it. And then they have a very like tragic parting. I won't get into all the details because, mind you, this book series is so long. But yeah, this is Caro's adventure and this is Lantha's adventure. And I mean, Lantha's my favorite character of the series, so obviously I had to go with her book because I had been waiting so long to get Lantha's story. And her story with Thronos is excellent. It's kind of an enemies to lovers story. And then you have Caro and Malcolm. And mind you, they don't even speak the same language, so they're trying to like Little Mermaid the story along, and I was like really into it. But yeah, these two are my favorite females of the series, so I have to go with their stories. What nonfictions have you read and liked? I really don't read a lot of nonfiction. I just don't. I'm very particular, and I guess I liked Bossy Pants by Tina Fey, and I liked Yes Please by Amy Poehler. I like Funny Ladies. I like their memoirs. They were both fun. I learned some things from it too. So yeah, I think those two, probably top ones. Favorite film adaptation of a book? I'm gonna go with Hunger Games, because I feel like those movies are true to the books, but enhanced the you know, source material. So those ones were done excellently well. And also Fight Club, because honestly it's better than the book. The book is frankly almost unreadable. It makes no sense, and the movie took the book and made it make sense. And also the ending is just better in the movie than it is in the book, so those ones. How did you come up with your name? Back in college, I don't know what my fashion like sense was, but I wore a lot of cardigans for some reason. I just really liked cardigans when I was in college, and like I have giant boobs and I wore cardigans and glasses, so I feel like my whole like aesthetic was naughty librarian, and I always just thought that was funny. And then it came time to make my YouTube channel, and I was just like, let's go with that aesthetic, naughty librarian. So here we are. I would like to read more, but my attention span is the equivalent of a goldfish. Any tips on keeping focus while reading? If you're like me, I would say try an audiobook. Because I have a really hard time sitting in one place doing nothing for any extended period of time. I have to like be moving around and doing something. So I mean, you know, hey, if you're gonna go clean the kitchen, pop in your audiobook, because your brain is already functioning at a pay attention level because you're doing something that involves paying attention. So your brain is already calibrated for paying attention, and then if you have an audiobook going, I find it easier just to focus in on that too, because my brain is already prepped for paying attention. So I would just recommend doing something with your body, whatever it is, and just popping in an audiobook. What is your favorite Funko Pop character? Well, I mean, obviously I have all of the drag queen pops because I love RuPaul's Drag Race and drag in general, but yes, I have all of those. These guys right here I've never talked about, but I actually made these. These are custom pops, and these are all of the characters from Six of Crows, and I made them. Sometimes I switched the heads around, sometimes I repainted, but yeah, these are all of my Six of Crows that I made by myself, so I'm pretty proud of that. And of course, sexy Jeff Goldblum from Jurassic Park. Where would we be without him? I don't know, but he's part of the cultural zeitgeist that I never want to get rid of. So yeah, sexy Jeff Goldblum, also a classic. If you were to release a book, what kind of genre would it be? That's actually an interesting question. I would definitely want to write an urban fantasy, because those books always excite me. I love them, and I actually do have like a whole series plotted out in my brain, and I really like it. I just think about my own story from time to time. I just entertain myself with it, but I have no patience or, I don't know, drive to physically sit down at a computer and write it. I feel if someone just wrote all the bare bones for me, and it was my job to do all the creative and the storytelling, and I could do that. I just need someone to do all the boring parts, because I have no desire to do that. So yeah, I think maybe if I had a writing partner, it would get done, but I don't, so it's not happening. But yeah, urban fantasy. I have a whole series I just entertain myself with. What book do you assume people associate with your channel? This one's pretty obvious, but anything by Tessa Dare. So many people who have messaged me or have actually met in person somewhere, they say, oh my gosh, I tried reading Tessa Dare because of you. And they're always excited about it. So I feel like I share Tessa Dare with a lot of people. Even though I really haven't talked about Tessa Dare in a while, but for a long time, I was obsessed and just like all of my content with Tessa Dare for a while. But yeah, Tessa Dare. Anything by Tessa Dare, people always associate with me. And you know what? I'm not mad about it. I'm totally fine with it. What's the most expensive book you own? I don't necessarily know if I would actually get a ton of money from selling them because they are missing their dust jacket, sadly. But these are both very rare books. First things first, this lovely book right here is actually a first edition of Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut. And I know it is a first edition because there are no other copyright dates except for the original copyright date in it, which is crazy that I have a first edition of it because it's a classic. I love it. Sadly, I do not have the dust jacket, so I think it loses value that way, but it's a first edition Slaughterhouse-Five, and I think it's very rare. My other very rare book is that I have a first edition For Whom the Bell Tolls by Ernest Hemingway. I know, right? This is a first edition. It's in really good shape too. I know it's a first edition because there is no other copyright material except for the original copyright, which is 1940. And whoo boy, this is like my find because look at it. It's like in immaculate condition. Immaculate condition. And I got this at a library book sale for $1. So yeah, don't sleep on library book sales. You will find incredible shit there. But yeah, it's a first edition by Ernest Hemingway, and I love it. And I feel like they would be more valuable if I had the dust jackets, but they're still very rare, the first editions. Is there a book and or genre you thought you didn't like, but then discovered you actually did? Yes, actually, historical romance. Surprisingly, for people who started here on the channel, you know, I finally just discovered historical romance not so long ago, honestly. I had this weird block about it. I had no interest in reading it for so long, and then I read Tessa Dare, and I was just like, oh, this is what I was missing? Okay, let me try a whole bunch more. And now people like come to me for like historical romance recommendations. And I'm like, I'm kind of a poser, guys. I haven't read that much, but yeah, I thought I didn't like it, and then I realized I kind of like it. What book made you love reading? Ooh, that's a hard one. I would say I really started reading a lot in high school because I was frankly bored out of my mind in class. I always had everything done so early. I was in AP courses, but I was just smart, and I was just bored, so I would just read shit. And I started a lot with graphic novels. I was reading a lot of stuff for Vertigo, so like Why the Last Man, I read the whole thing of. I was obsessed with it back in the day. And I'd also read like Charles Bukowski books. I thought I was so deep and intellectual as a teenager. But yeah, I would say graphic novels and Charles Bukowski were the books I started reading. They're kind of the books I first picked on my own to read outside of schoolwork. So those. Favorite to underrated book. Now, there are a lot of underrated books out there, but I'm going to go with Sealed with a Curse by Ceci Robson. I've brought this up a few times on my channel, but I literally have not met anyone else who's read this unless I have forced them to read it. But I use the word forced loosely because usually they read it and go, oh my gosh, it's so good. I'm like, I know, right? So it's urban fantasy. And honestly, this series is one of my all-time favorite urban fantasy series. It's so good. And I think Ceci Robson, I mean, it is on Signet Eclipse, so it is like traditionally published, but she still has like an indie vibe to her. And yeah, I love Ceci Robson. Great writer. This is one of my all-time favorite paranormal romance / urban fantasy series. I highly recommend. It's so underrated. More people should read it. It's really good. How did you originally get into romance as a genre? You know, it's funny because for so long I was like not about reading romance. I was like, no, I don't want to read it. And then I was in college, and a lot of my like girlfriends and I, we would trade books and like you gotta read this book. Oh, I gotta read this book. And we trade books, and it was really fun. And then finally my friend came up to me one day and she handed me this book. She's like, listen, a ghost and a vampire do it. And I was like, tell me more. And it was this book by Kresley Cole she handed me, which is Dark Needs at Night's Edge. And literally, it's a ghost and a vampire. They do it. And I had never read a romance before, and I read this, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible! And I went back and read all the books before this one, I read all the books after this one, I was obsessed. And from there, I really got into paranormal romance, I found all these other authors I liked, and from there I got into contemporary romance and historical romance, so yeah, this is the book that started it all. All because in college my friend came up to me and said, hey, a vampire and a ghost do it. And I was sold. What are your favorite heroine archetypes? You know, it's hard because there's so many like heroine archetypes that are almost like caricatures of women that don't work for a lot of reasons. So I like character archetypes that aren't really an archetype, if that makes any sense. Like, I just want a woman who's fucking practical. Practicality is like a key for me. Someone who's just like, yeah, like, we gotta run and get out of here because zombies are coming. Not someone going, oh, I need help, and like freaking out and having an emotional breakdown. I need someone who'd be like, we got to get the fuck out of here. So yeah, I like a practicality in my heroines. I like them to be able to adapt to situations that are crazy. So yeah, it's a certain practicality element. I think I want them just to have common sense. That's my biggest thing with heroines. Just, you need to be able to think properly. And yeah, there was a few more questions, but they were kind of very similar to other questions I've already answered. That's pretty much it. You guys were awesome and asked me very polite questions. I was kind of scared that someone was going to ask me something very inappropriate, but no one did that. And I should have known that. My subscribers, people who watch these videos, are all genuinely really great people. Like, I very rarely have any problems with anyone, so like I should have known that everyone would be cool, but you know, it's the internet and I'm a woman. Things get weird from time to time. Anyway, thank you guys so much for asking me questions, and I hope I've shared some bookish knowledge about myself with everybody, and maybe I'll do another video in the future if this video, you know, if you guys like this. If this does well, maybe I'll do another one, who knows. But yeah, I feel like I've yammered on long enough. I feel like this is going to be a long video. Let me know in the comments down below if you have any more questions, I guess. I'll try to answer them. Let me know in the comments down below. If you like this video, make sure you give it a like. And if you want to see more videos, make sure you subscribe. And I'll see you guys soon. Bye!